One piece of advice that you've always been told when it comes to losing weight is to stop overdoing it on the weekend. But I genuinely don't think that's your problem. I don't think it's the takeaway you had on Saturday. I think your entire weight loss journey has been ruined by what you do after those things. I started my own journey nearly 3 years ago where I dieted for 9 months and I've managed to keep the weight off ever since. And what I've learned from my own experience as well as coaching hundreds of different people, the people who lose weight and actually keep it off aren't the people who never fall off track. They're the people who get back on track the quickest. And once you understand what I'm about to explain in this video, you'll stop feeling like you're starting again every single Monday. I want to take you back to the start of my own journey where 3 years ago, I was in the worst shape that I've ever been in. I was overweight, I was out of shape, I felt awful when I looked in the mirror. Trying on clothes was just a no-go because nothing fit how I wanted them to. I felt tired and sluggish all the time, so I felt really low on energy, and overall I was just in bad shape. I was overweight and out of shape, like I said at the start. I decided to do something about it. Like I said, I spent the next 9 months dieting, and ever since that point, I've managed to keep the weight off ever since. Now, it's crucial that you are doing the right things. We all know about obviously training, staying as active as possible, being in a calorie deficit, all that stuff as well. But it's more of a mindset thing that I want to explain to you, because I know so many people who start a weight loss journey and they never end up following it through or never end up getting where they want to. And a large part of that is because of the weekend and what they do after those things. And across the last 3 years, I've had holidays, I've had birthdays, weekends, Christmas, New Year, whatever, loads of different social events, meals out of the weekend, etc. and all that stuff. So I've had all that stuff going on ever since the start of my own weight loss journey. Don't get me wrong, there has to be some form of sacrifice. There has to be some form of commitment to it. Like for me, for example, I had a system and routine in place when it comes to my nutrition. So throughout the week, I tend to eat the same meals because it allows me more flexibility on the weekend. So I know when it comes to the weekend, I'm still remaining on track because of what I've done throughout the week. I've also still got my training done. I've also still remained active. So I've still done all the stuff that I needed to do. So there's that level of commitment needed. But every single weekend can't be a huge binge. You can't be overdoing it all the time. Otherwise, you're just going to make it an uphill battle for you to actually get to where you want to get to. But I've managed to lose weight and keep it off for the last 3 years and still remain social. But one of the biggest mistakes I see people make is throughout the week, they're putting so much energy, they put so much effort into the fitness journey, which is amazing. They put that commitment into it, which is fantastic. But as soon as the weekend comes, they beat themselves up. They make themselves feel guilty to the point where they stop what they were doing. They stop what they were doing because they think they failed. And you think you failed because the day after you've probably stepped on the scales and it shows you that you've gained weight. So then you're stuck in the cycle of thinking, what is the point? What's the point of putting all the effort in that I've done Monday to Friday just to mess it up on the weekend? And that's the bit that I want to speak to you about, because you mentally beat yourself up, you make yourself feel guilty, you make yourself feel bad to the point where you stop what you were doing. Until a few months down the line, you think, I need to do something about my fitness, I need to do something about my weight because it's making me feel X, Y, and Z. And then you start again. But that cycle is the same cycle you found yourself in for the last decade or however long you've been trying. But here's what I do in that moment, and here's what my clients do. I encourage everyone, and in myself included, is to get back into my normal routine as quickly as possible. Like I said to you at the very beginning, I dieted for 9 months. I then kept the weight off ever since then, ever since 3 years ago. So I've done all that. I've had social events, so I know how to work these, I know how to manage them. And one of the best things that I've always done is get straight back into my normal routine as quickly as possible. As soon as that's happened, the next day I'm eating back to normal. So let's say Saturday night, I've been out, whatever it is, a meal out, etc. The next day, I'm eating normally again. I'm back into my normal routine. Monday comes, I've got my training plan, I know what I'm doing. I already know what I'm eating because I've got that system in place that I spoke to you about before, where I know what meals I'm having for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So I've already got that in place. So all I need to do is get back into my normal routine as quickly as possible. So that is what I encourage you to do, and that is also what I encourage my clients to do. Not to make themselves feel guilty, not to beat themselves up, but to get back to your normal routine as quickly as possible. You can also make little trade-offs throughout the week. So throughout the week, for example, if I'm going out on Saturday and I know that by Monday, I can have a little bit of less calories throughout the week. So I'm manipulating my calories in that way. So I'm having 100 to 200 less every single day. So then I have a little bit more room to play with at the weekend. I can also make little swaps on the actual day. So I know, let's say it's a spontaneous meal out in the evening, I'm going to have a lighter lunch and I'm going to have a lighter breakfast. So I can already do that and make little switches there, here and there. And little things like that do go a long way when it comes to managing social events and managing the weekend. But the best thing that I always do is I don't beat myself up, I don't make myself feel guilty for it. I get straight back into my normal routine as quickly as I possibly can. And that is what you have to do, because that is how you go about losing weight at the very start of your own fitness journey. But it's also about how you go keeping it off long term and keeping it off for good. Because if you try really, really hard throughout the week, then comes to the weekend, then you feel guilty for it, you beat yourself up, so you stop, so you think, what's the point? You're always going to be stuck in that cycle. What you have to do is learn how to move on from it. A successful fitness fitness journey and weight loss journey is built by new behaviors and new habits, but it's also built from a new mindset. You have to be in a mindset of, I'm going to let it go. There's nothing I can do about it now, but what can I learn from it? So you go into the next week thinking, right, I can make little trade-offs. I can have 100 to 200 calories less every single day. So then next weekend, I'm not going to go overboard completely. We also know that scales do fluctuate. So if you give yourself a few days post getting back into normal routine after a social event, you're probably going to find yourself that scale is going to come back down. But if you have a bad day and get into the mindset of, right, I'm just going to get back into my normal routine as quickly as possible, that's a huge step in the right direction. That's a huge shift from what you were doing before. But if you have a bad day and then it leads you into having a bad few days or a bad week or completely stopping, you're in the same position as what you were doing before. You're going to be always in the cycle that you've always wanted to get out of. So you have to do something different. And the best thing that you can do is get back to normality as quickly as possible. One thing that you've got to understand is these social events are always going to be a part of your life. They're always going to be there. It's very, very hard to try to do a fitness journey without them because, like I said, they're always around. You know, there'll be a spontaneous meal out at the weekend. There's always someone's birthday. There's some holiday you want to go on. So they're always going to be part of your life. So you have to learn how to work it with them. But what you can't do is what you've always probably done, where you let it snowball and you let it spiral into something that it should have never been in the first place, to the point where you do end up quitting and stopping because you mentally beat yourself up, you put yourself down, you make you think you failed. If we can get into the mindset where we aim for about 80% of a good week, so let's say a good week consists of training well, you're staying within your calories, you're remaining active as possible, and you're doing all that stuff 80% of the time, you can allow yourself that 20% wiggle room where you have a little bit more flexibility than normal. But again, you have to get back into that 80% as quickly as you possibly can. But you can't let a bad day snowball into a bad few days or a bad week. So yes, you have to be doing the right things. Yes, you have to be doing the right things consistently, but you also have to approach it differently. You can't be stuck in the same cycle you've always been in before. And if you want that little bit of extra help, you want that extra little bit of support and accountability, just make sure you go to the description down below, fill in the one-to-one coaching form, and I'll be in touch. But make sure you don't let a bad day snowball into a bad few days or a bad week. Get straight back into your normal routine as quickly as you possibly can. And I guarantee you will end up a lot further along in your weight loss journey than you've ever been before.